The storm hit without warning, a wall of black clouds that swallowed the sky whole. Chen gripped her daughter's hand so tightly she could feel the small bones shifting beneath her fingers as the yacht lurched sideways. 5-year-old Emma screamed, her voice lost in the roar of wind and crashing waves. This was supposed to be their fresh start, their escape from 3 years of struggling alone in Seattle's unforgiving rain. Instead, Mia watched in horror as the luxury vessel chartered for a corporate retreat she'd barely been able to afford as a freelance photographer began to tear apart like paper in God's cruel hands. She wrapped her body around Emma, whispering promises she couldn't keep, tasting salt and terror and the bitter knowledge that she'd failed the one person who mattered most. Then the deck beneath them simply disappeared, and they were falling into darkness that swallowed them whole. When Mia opened her eyes, the sun was scorching her face. Sand pressed against her cheek. Every muscle in her body felt bruised, as if she'd been beaten by invisible fists. But none of that mattered because Emma wasn't beside her. "Emma!" The scream tore from her throat as she pushed herself upright, vision swimming. The beach stretched endlessly in both directions, littered with debris from the yacht. "Emma!" "She's safe." Mia spun toward the voice and found herself staring at Alexander Pierce, CEO of Pierce Technologies and the reason for the entire doomed corporate retreat. He was carrying Emma in his arms, her small body wrapped in his soaked suit jacket. Even disheveled and exhausted, he maintained that infuriating air of command that had annoyed Mia during the brief cocktail reception before the storm hit. "Mommy!" Emma reached for her, and Mia stumbled forward, tears streaming down her face as she gathered her daughter close. "Where did you find her?" Mia demanded, checking Emma for injuries with shaking hands. "Washed up about 50 yards that way," Alexander said quietly. "I pulled her out of the water 20 minutes ago." She was coughing but breathing. "I've been watching over both of you since." Mia looked up at him properly then, seeing the exhaustion carved into his face, the makeshift bandage around his left hand, the way he swayed slightly on his feet. "Are you hurt?" "Nothing serious." He glanced around the beach, his jaw tightening. "We need to assess our situation. From what I can see, we're on an uninhabited island. The yacht is destroyed. I saw no other survivors." The words hung between them like stones. 12 people had been on that yacht. 3 crew members, 9 passengers attending Alexander's corporate retreat. Now there were just 3, a billionaire CEO known for ruthless business tactics, a struggling single mother, and a kindergartner. "Do you have your phone?" Mia asked, knowing it was futile. Alexander pulled out a waterlogged iPhone, its screen completely black. "Dead. Yours?" "In my camera bag, which is probably at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean." Mia felt panic clawing at her throat but forced it down. Emma was watching her with wide, frightened eyes. She had to stay calm. Okay, someone will come looking for us, right? When the yacht doesn't return? Eventually." Alexander's expression was grim, but we were blown significantly off course during the storm. It could take days, maybe weeks, before search teams locate this island. We need to prepare to survive. The first 3 days blurred together in a haze of desperate activity. Alexander, despite his polished corporate background, proved surprisingly resourceful. He'd spent childhood summers camping with his grandfather, he explained, before his father's tech empire had consumed their family's life. He built a shelter from palm fronds and debris, started a fire using a method Mia had only seen on reality TV shows, and located a freshwater stream a quarter-mile inland. Mia contributed her own skills identifying edible plants from a botanical photography project she'd done years ago, fishing using a makeshift spear, keeping Emma occupied with stories and games made from shells and driftwood. They fell into a rhythm born of necessity, their initial wariness gradually dissolving under the weight of survival. Emma became the unexpected bridge between them. She adored Alexander, fascinated by his stories about building computer companies and traveling the world. He, in turn, seemed transformed in her presence. The hard corporate edge softened. He taught Emma to identify constellations, built her a swing from vines, carried her on his shoulders during their daily water runs. "You're good with her," Mia said one evening as they sat by the fire, watching Emma sleep on a bed of soft leaves. I had a daughter. The words came quietly, painfully. Sophie, she would have been 7 now. Mia's breath caught. Would have been? Leukemia, 3 years ago. Alexander stared into the flames. My ex-wife and I, we didn't survive losing her. The marriage ended 6 months after Sophie died. I threw myself into work, built the company bigger, worked harder, convinced myself that achievement could fill the hole she left behind. I'm so sorry. Mia reached out instinctively, placing her hand over his. Emma lost her father too. Different circumstances. He left when she was 6 months old. Decided fatherhood wasn't for him, but I know what it's like to watch your child grieve an absence. Their eyes met across the firelight, and something shifted between them, a recognition of shared pain, shared resilience. The turning point came during week 2, when Emma developed a fever. It started as simple lethargy, but by nightfall she was burning up, shaking with chills despite the tropical heat. Mia held her daughter close, terror turning her blood to ice. Without medicine, without doctors, a fever could become deadly. We need to cool her down, Alexander said, already moving. He ran to the stream, soaked cloths in the cold water, returned and helped Mia apply them to Emma's forehead and wrists. When Emma cried for water, he held her gently while Mia trickled liquid between her cracked lips. They worked together through the endless night, taking turns holding Emma, monitoring her temperature, whispering desperate prayers to a sky full of indifferent stars. Alexander told Sophie's favorite stories, his voice breaking as he described tea, parties and princess dresses and laughter that had once filled his empty house. I can't lose her, Mia whispered as dawn broke. She's everything. If something happens to her, nothing will happen to her. Alexander's voice was fierce. Do you hear me? We will keep her safe. Both of us. By some miracle, divine intervention or immune, system resilience or sheer force of will, Emma's fever broke that afternoon. She opened her eyes, smiled weakly, asked for coconut water. Mia sobbed with relief, and when Alexander wrapped his arms around both of them, she didn't pull away. Thank you, she whispered against his shoulder. I couldn't have done this alone. You're the strongest person I know, he said softly. Raising Emma by yourself, building a career. Surviving this, you're remarkable, Mia. Something crystallized in that moment, born from shared crisis and mutual respect, and nights, spent learning each other's fears and dreams, around a driftwood fire. They were no longer strangers thrust together by catastrophe. They had become something else entirely. That night, after Emma fell into peaceful sleep, they sat on the beach watching moonlight silver the waves. If we can't go back, Mia said quietly, the question she'd been avoiding finally surfacing, must I marry you? Alexander turned to her, surprise flickering across his face. What? It's what happens in stories, isn't it? Man and woman stranded on desert island. Forced intimacy creates romance. They returned to civilization engaged. She tried to sound light, joking, but her voice trembled. Is that what you think this is? Alexander asked. Some story? I don't know what this is. Mia wrapped her arms around herself. Before this island, you were Alexander Pierce, billionaire CEO. I was the struggling photographer. You barely noticed at the cocktail party. We exist in completely different worlds. But here, she gestured at the primitive shelter, the fire, the simple life they'd built. Here, none of that matters. Here, you're just Alexander who tells Emma bedtime stories and catches fish, and holds my hand when I'm scared of storms. And when we get rescued. Alexander's voice was careful. When we return to those different worlds, Mia felt tears prick her eyes. Then reality intrudes. You go back to boardrooms and penthouses. I go back to my studio apartment and freelance deadlines. And this becomes something we survived, not something we lived. Alexander was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words were measured, deliberate. 3 years ago, after Sophie died, I stopped believing in second chances. I convinced myself that I'd used up my quota of happiness, that the universe had taken everything that mattered. Work became my entire existence because it was safe. It couldn't betray me, couldn't leave me, couldn't break my heart again. He turned to face Mia fully, moonlight illuminating the vulnerability in his expression. Then a storm threw me onto this beach with a woman and her daughter, and forced me to remember what it feels like to care about something beyond quarterly earnings. Emma reminds me of Sophie, not in looks but in spirit, in laughter, in the way she finds wonder in everything. And you, he reached out, cupping Mia's face gently. You remind me that strength isn't about never breaking. It's about putting yourself back together, again and again, for the people who need you. Alexander, let me finish. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. You asked if you must marry me if we can't go back. The answer is no. You don't owe me anything. Mia, these weeks we've spent together don't obligate you to anything beyond survival. But if you're asking whether I want more than just surviving with you, if you're asking whether I've fallen in love with your courage and your kindness, and the way you sing to Emma when you think I'm not listening, then yes. God help me, yes. Mia's breath caught. We barely know each other. I know you save the best portions of food for Emma even when you're starving. I know you cry silently at night when you think we're both asleep, because you're terrified but won't let Emma see your fear. I know you've built an entire life for your daughter despite every obstacle, and that you're the kind of mother Sophie would have loved to have. His voice roughened. And I know that if we do get rescued, if we do return to our different worlds, I will spend the rest of my life regretting it if... I don't tell you how I feel right now. The kiss, when it came, tasted like salt and possibility. Mia melted into it, into him, letting herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe stories could come true after all. On day 23, a helicopter appeared on the horizon. Emma spotted it first, jumping up and down on the beach and screaming with joy. Mia and Alexander ran from the shelter, waving frantically, watching as the helicopter descended. Coast Guard emblems marked its sides. Rescue, civilization, reality. The next hours passed in a blur. Medics checking vitals, warm blankets, questions about the yacht and other survivors. Radio communications. They were flown to a hospital in Hawaii where reporters already crowded the entrance. Alexander Pierce, missing billionaire, found alive after 3 weeks. The story went viral within hours. In the sterile hospital room, cleaned up and checked over by doctors, Mia held Emma close and watched Alexander handle phone calls from his board of directors, his attorneys, his publicist. He was transforming back before her eyes. The man from the island disappearing beneath layers of corporate armor. When he finally hung up, the silence stretched uncomfortably. They want me back in Seattle immediately, he said. Emergency board meeting. The company's in chaos. Of course. Mia forced a smile. You need to go. We understand. Mia! It's okay, Alexander, really. She couldn't meet his eyes. This was always going to be complicated. Maybe it's better this way. Clean break, good memories, no messy reality to ruin it. Is that what you want? What she wanted was impossible. To freeze time on that beach. To live forever in the simplicity of survival. Where roles and wealth and history didn't matter. But Emma was already asking about going home, about her toys and her bed and her friends. Real life was calling them back. I want Emma to have stability, Mia said finally. I want to get back to work, rebuild our life. Whatever this was between us, it was beautiful. But it was also survival, Alexander. We don't know if it can exist outside that context. The pain in his eyes nearly broke her resolve. But then he nodded, understanding written across his face. If that's what you need. He left that evening, his private jet already fueled and waiting. Emma cried, clinging to his neck, making him promise to visit. He made the promise while looking at Mia, a question in his gaze she couldn't answer. Then he was gone. And Mia was left wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. 2 weeks later, Mia was photographing a wedding in Seattle when her phone rang. Ms. Chen? This is Caroline Wu from Pierce Technologies. Mr. Pierce would like to see you and Emma tomorrow at 2 p.m. if you're available. Mia's heart hammered. For what purpose? He didn't say, but he was very insistent that it was important. The Pierce Technologies headquarters occupied an entire downtown block, all glass and steel and intimidating corporate minimalism. Mia felt profoundly out of place in her thrift store dress. holding Emma's hand as they entered the marble lobby. Alexander met them at the elevator, and Mia's breath caught. He wore a perfectly tailored suit, his hair professionally styled. Every inch the powerful CEO, but when Emma ran to him with a squeal of delight, he dropped to his knees without hesitation, gathering her into a fierce hug. "I missed you, sweetheart," he murmured into Emma's hair. "I missed you too." Emma pulled back, studying his face seriously. "Are you coming back to the island?" "No, honey. But I want to show you and your mom something. Is that okay?" He led them not to a boardroom, but to a residential floor Mia hadn't known existed. When he opened the door, she gasped. The penthouse apartment was stunning, floor to ceiling, windows overlooking Elliott Bay, modern furnishings, expensive art. But what caught her attention was the bedroom. Clearly designed for a child, complete with a canopy bed, bookshelves full of picture books, and a window seat perfect for reading. "I don't understand," Mia said. Alexander guided Emma to explore the room, then turned to Mia. "You were right that day in the hospital. We don't know if what we found on that island can exist here. But I've spent the last 2 weeks realizing that I don't want to go back to who I was before. The man who used work to avoid living. Sophie's death taught me that time is precious. The island taught me that I'm capable of more than building companies." He took Mia's hands. "I love you. I love Emma, and I want to build a life with both of you. Not because we're obligated by survival, but because I choose it. Because you choose it. If you'll have me." "Alexander, this is too much." "The apartment is yours regardless," he interrupted gently. "No strings attached. You and Emma deserve stability, security. Whether or not you want me to be part of that is entirely your decision." Mia felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "You really mean that?" "Every word." His thumb brushed away her tears. "On that island, you asked if you must marry me. The answer was and is no. But Mia, will you? Not because you have to, but because you want to build something real with me." Through the doorway, Mia could see Emma spinning in circles in her new room, laughing with pure joy. She thought about the island, about the man who'd held her daughter through fever-racked nights, who'd learned to see past wealth and status to simple human connection. She thought about second chances and the courage it took to choose vulnerability. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." When Alexander kissed her, it tasted like coming home, to a home they'd build together, not from driftwood and survival, but from choice and love and the beautiful, complicated messiness of real life. Emma's delighted cheer echoed through the apartment, and Mia knew with absolute certainty that sometimes the best stories aren't about surviving storms, but about having the courage to believe in sunshine afterward.